Welcome to Life Her Podcast, the podcast that guides you from the 9-to-5 grind to the freedom of your own path. Discover how to conquer life's challenges while pursuing your passions with unwavering faith. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. So let's get to it.
Hey everyone, I'm Yvette Lloyd, host of Life Her Podcast. I have a pleasure of speaking with an incredible guest, Kirk McCarley, and also he's known as the Seed Sower Coach. With over 30 years of executive leadership experience, Kirk has dedicated his life to helping people unlock their full God-given potential. And we all know we all need to tap into that no matter how old we are. And from coaching and leadership development to wording and working and behind the scenes of ESPN and even leading spinning classes, his journey is proof that it's never too late to pursue a new passion. He's also an author of Thoughts of My Kids and Other People's Kids, sharing valuable life lessons on leadership, communication, and success. I can't wait to dive into this inspiring story. So let's welcome Kirk McCarley to the show. Hey, Kirk, how are you?
Thanks for having me, Yvette. It's my pleasure to be here with you. Let's get started.
Yes, I'm excited about this because I love when people step into their calling. And also, what I love about you is that you love God.
Yes, I do.
You love him so much. And I wish people understand how much God can do for them and what he does for them and appreciate it more, because sometimes I think we overwhelm ourselves with life itself and we just forget about how much he protects us.
He was with me today. I went on a bike ride before we went on the podcast, and God and I had a wonderful conversation for about 58 miles. He said, "Son, have a good podcast this afternoon." So that's what I'm aiming to do.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, God. So you've had a rich career spanning the executive leadership, coaching, sports production, and fitness. What inspired you to transition into coaching after 35 years in HR?
After, age of 56, I guess at that time, I was considering what I wanted to do next. I had had a good career in HR. It wasn't an A plus career, but it was probably an A minus B plus. Pretty good. But I wanted to achieve self actualization, as we would call that on the hierarchy of needs. So, in order to do that, I hired a coach myself. That was in 2013. And I contemplated several different things with my coach. I thought about teaching. I thought about counseling, therapy. I gave some thought to pastoral ministry. In fact, it was about the third meeting I had with him. I had that eureka, that aha moment that in coaching we crave and we thrive on, where I looked him in the eye and I said, I want to do what you do. So that was in 2013. A couple of years later, I went to school. I pursued certification. And 2016, I launched my coaching enterprise while I was still in St. Louis before we transitioned down here to Northwest Florida, where we live now. So that, in a nutshell, is my journey with a lot of things in the last 9 years skipped out, and we can get to that later on. But that's how I got into it.
Wow. So at 68, you could continue to explore new paths. What advice would you give to those who feel like it's too late to pivot or chase their dreams?
Well, the big thing I say is number one, keep moving. And that can be physically, but it can also be mentally. What is new? What is something different that you want to pursue? I look at people who really kind of had rebirths or reinventions when they reach that stage in life around 70. One guy in particular, Edward Deming, um, was a statistician, a mathematician. He went to Japan in the 1950s as they were recovering from World War II.
Mm.
And he talked to them about quality improvement in the products that they were making. He was overlooked here in this country until an NBC white paper in 1980 talked about if Japan can do it, why can't we? Ed Deming, at the age of 70, emerged on the scene to become the father of total quality management, which arguably has led us into Lean, Six Sigma, some of the other quality process improvements. He stuck around for another 25 years. He lived to like 94, 95, and he had impact. I look
Yeah.
at John Glenn, who orbited the Earth again at the age of 77. I look at Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, former Beatles, 82, 83 years old. They're still performing. Tony
Right.
Bennett recently passed away, but at the age of 95, with dementia and Alzheimer's, there was a certain part of his brain that was still functioning. He was collaborating with Lady Gaga at 95 and doing stage performances singing.
Wow.
So, those are just a few people who discovered their why not at later stages of life and really had impact. So, as long as you're healthy, as long as you're mentally fit, there are all kinds of things that can be done.
Wow. You know what's so crazy, Kirk, is I've been doing a lot of studying lately. So I lost my mom in 2019, and then a year later in 2020 I had lost my husband. And it's been like 5 years now. So dealing with that and me building a stronger relationship with God, I've been finding myself now that I've been focused more on my health and tapping more into things that really matter to me, and just looking at life differently, like the examples you gave of the different people and even yourself. It's creating me to want to make those changes now, with me being 41, and I already know it's going to be even different by the time I get older. And it was to a point, my mom, she retired when she was 61, and she worked at the same job for years. I would say like 38 years. And she was retired just a year and she passed away. So she just really didn't get to enjoy her time off from working hard. And that was like a huge lesson for me, to see how much a person can work so hard and not really just enjoying life itself. And it's so important.
I'm sorry for your loss too, with your mom and your husband.
Thank
Uh,
you.
that is certainly impactful, and I'm sorry that you've had to go through that. But I applaud you for reinvention and figuring out what's next as you take your steps forward. So, um, congratulations on that, Yvette, for overcoming and rerouting your past, so to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's why I was like excited about our conversation, because you enlighten people a lot, and with your wisdom, for you to give people a different perspective of life itself. And a lot of my listeners are, some of them are around your age, and they need to hear things like this, because it's sometimes people are afraid to have these conversations, because sometimes people will reject the conversation, or like dim their light when it comes to it, because they're still stuck in their ways mentally and don't think certain things is possible due to age, when it's really no age limit and no sky to the limit as well, for you to actually not still pursue what you would love to do and something that makes you happy.
My parents were a tremendous influence on me with what I'm doing now. My mom worked till she was 82, 83. She passed away many years ago. My dad, at the age of 69, had never had an opportunity to go to college, and he returned to college at that age. But what was interesting about his academic pursuit, it was a classical education. It was Greek, it was Latin, it was art, it was music, it was literature. And it wasn't a degree plan, so to speak, but it would have been something that the ancient Greeks would have pursued educationally. He also worked part time. He was a school crossing guard into his 70s and early 80s. So they were inspiring. I remember my mom pointing out my allergist growing up, Dr. Hulsey. He worked till 95 and he had made a statement: I just don't believe in retirement. This is what I was created to do. I enjoy doing it. I still do it well. And so why not keep on doing that? So that's what he has done. So those are people who have been inspirational to me in terms of determining what's next. And there's always a different twist in the road, an opportunity for reinvention. I was at a gathering this past weekend, and somebody came up to me and asked, "What are you doing now? Are you retired?" I said, "No, I'm refired."
Oh, that was nice. That was nice. I like that comeback. That's so true. So your brand, the Seed Sower Coach, is a powerful metaphor. How did you come up with the name and what does it represent in your coaching philosophy?
It's a good question. There are a couple of inspirations. One, I've been a gardener for years and years and years, and I just love the idea of putting something small in the ground, watching it grow, nourish it, flourish. And that's what I attempt to do with my clients is plant them, water them, fertilize them, give them the nourishment that they need so they can grow. Likewise, it's inspired. I'm inspired by the parable of the seed sower from the gospel, and same philosophy and principle behind that. Planting a seed in the ground, finding fertile ground in which to do that, nourishing it with wisdom, with guidance, with support and encouragement, and watching it grow into something that is way beyond what the person could have possibly thought they were going to do in the first place. So, two inspirations with that event.
Wow. So, how does coaching differ from counseling, and what misconceptions do people often have about life and career coaching?
Well, my friends who are therapists and counselors, hats off to them. They do a tremendous job. I've had rough spots in my own life where I have consulted with counselors who have been very effective in getting me on a better path than the one that I was on.
Yeah.
The distinction between coaching and counseling, there's a couple of things. One is coaching is future oriented. So with a client, I'm not focused so much on the past. With counselors, you get into family of origin and issues that you've had in upbringing. Coaches seek a whole person. In other words, I'm where I want to be, but I want to get better. I want a future that is going to fulfill what my dreams, goals, and ambitions are. So that's one thing that's a difference. The second thing is coaches don't give advice. Counselors will. What we'll do is we'll present a metaphorical story for purposes of illustration, for making a point. But someone comes to me and asks me, "What do you think I should do?" We play a little game with that. What do you think you should do? What steps do you need to take in order to get to your decision that you want to make as far as whatever this issue is that you're facing right now? So again, they'll come back and they'll say, "Coach, what would you do in this instance?" Again, client, I'm not you. I haven't lived the life that you've lived. This is your decision. How do you weigh what it is that you're going to do? So, again, the two biggest distinctions.
Yeah, that's true because I really never viewed it the way you just made it. And it's like people really stepping into their reality. It's like you're making them responsible for their path and making them actually see exactly what's going on with them. Because sometimes people like try to like run away from the actual problem and the root of things when you're actually putting it right in front of their face when they are having a hard time figuring out, because a lot of times we bury things and we bury it so deep to a point we haven't thought about it in so long. So I think that is really great that you actually you know put things that way for them to actually see the reality, and it's like different steps to heal for you to actually move forward in life.
My wife has her own business. She's extremely successful as an interior designer. So we
Cool.
both have our own businesses and we'll share notes, which is really a lot of fun. But she'll come into my office and she'll say, I've got a problem. I've got a dilemma with such and such. What do you think I should do? And I'll say, well, what are the pros and cons of what you're evaluating? And she'll look at me and say, don't coach me, just tell me what to do. And I said, I'm smarter than that. I'm not going to tell you what to do, because then if things go south, it's my fault and I'm not going to take ownership of that. She shakes her head, leaves my office, closes the door, and usually figures out what it is that she asked me about to begin with.
That is hilarious. Shame on you, Kirk. So through your work, you've helped many individuals reach their full potential. What is one of the most transformative success stories that you've witnessed in coaching besides your wife?
Besides my wife. And my wife's adorable, by the way. She's put up with me for 45 years now.
Ooh,
So
bless her heart.
uh, bless her heart for sure. But back to your question, I'm thinking of a woman a couple of years ago who was a financial executive, and she was looking to advance in her career. And when I first encountered her, very introverted, she wouldn't share much about herself other than what was going on in her work environment. But through the course of our connection together, she opened up a little bit more. She shared about her personal dreams and desires, her family, how they support her in what she's doing professionally. And as we prepared her for job interviews, uh, let's bring in your personal side as well. Make yourself human. So that's going to connect with the people that you're talking with. Well, to make a long story short, she grew each meeting that we had till in the end, she got another executive financial services position. She was already making in the upper hundreds. Now she's making the upper 200s. So she got $100,000 increase adjustment in doing that, but became the very best version of who she already is. And that was what I was most gratified by and proud of her for doing, is opening up and being her total self, professionally, personally, relationship wise.
Wow. Sound like you were talking about me for a second there too. I'm like, wait a minute. Wow. So what are key traits you believe every great leader should develop?
Number one is listening, listening intentionally,
Yeah.
allowing people an opportunity to tell their story. We are quick to want to butt in. And in fact, in the United States, there is about 1 second between the time one person says something and the other person begins speaking. We're almost waiting to get the next word in as opposed to listening to what the person just said. You go to
Yes.
some Asian cultures, it's an 8-second delay, which that happens over here in the States. People get a little bit uncomfortable, but it's part of the culture in those areas. Give the person an opportunity to process, to think, to contemplate. So, listening is one thing. Slowing down the pace, turning down the thermostat. I found people get in such a hurry to say what they want to say that they're talking faster than they can think. So, what I'll coach people on is let's slow the rhythm down just a little bit, the cadence, allow yourself the opportunity to process. And what you end up doing is taking control of that connection, yet without being controlling. And both
Yeah.
parties are rewarded with that. So, two things: listening, listening intentionally, and that leads to allowing people an opportunity to process and think.
Wow. That is true. A lot of people don't listen. They really don't. So, one thing I have listened during our conversation, you were saying like you went through a lot of personal things in your life itself. What have you learned about yourself through coaching others? Because a lot of times when we coach people, sometimes we use our life experiences when it comes to it, or sometimes you could come across people that have the same traits that you used to have, and you find ways to help them and connect with them because you have experienced it already.
People come to crossroads, intersections
Yeah.
where a decision is necessary. One that was very significant for me, and I'll use it as a point of illustration with clients. This event was like 30 years ago, and I was really struggling with myself, with my self confidence, with self esteem. I had a lot of anxiety about that, and I was committing that fatal sin of other people are in a better place than I am. What
Mm.
I also found at that moment, I was really reaching out to God a lot. God, help me at this point. Help me walk through it. What do I need to see to grow to get beyond this? So again, I was really struggling. A good friend of mine in a men's group I was in at the time said, I'd like you to meet with this counselor. He's got a magic touch in being able to say things that will really make a difference in people's lives. So I said, okay, I appreciate that. And my friend even paid for it. So it's even better. So I met with this guy. His name was Gary. And he opened up by saying, kind of, where are you right now? I said, Gary, I feel like I'm in a wilderness. I'm lost. I'm reaching out for God more than I've ever reached out to him before, and really holding on to what his message may be for me. Gary said to me, God has got you exactly where he wants you, with him. Now, I'd like to say after he said that, things changed for me immediately. Work got better, finances got better, relationships improved. They didn't. But over the course of time, as I fell back on that, it was such wisdom, such power in what he had to say. So now, 30 years later, I've stolen that from Gary. And as a client starts talking to me about being lost, um, reaching out to God, and if they're on a faith walk, and I've identified that, I'll share some of those same words with them.
Wow. So faith seems like it's a big part of your journey. How has it influenced your coaching and leadership philosophy?
I work with people of all faiths and not faiths. Um, so I'll be meeting with Christ followers, but I'll meet with people that are Jewish persuasion, Muslims, people that have no faith at all.
Wow.
The Great Commission is to go out and make disciples of all nations. And I believe in that strong. But Paul also tells us in his letters, put yourself in the mindset of the person that you're talking to. So, coupling those two things together, how can I best be a disciple? Oftentimes it's listening. I was in uh, Durham, North Carolina last fall and was doing a football game. Took an Uber ride back to my hotel from the college where I was at, and the driver was Muslim. And I was asking him about his faith. What is Mecca like? Why is that so important? And he asked me, "Are you Muslim?" I said, "No, I'm a Christ follower." And it was a conversation that could have very easily gone south where we talked about the disagreements in our two faiths. Instead, we focused on the commonalities that were there. He said he would pray for me. I said, I will pray for you. And throughout my conversation with him, I prayed to God. And I said, give me the words to say that you would want me to say, and also prevent me from saying things that you don't want me to say. I was very blessed. And at the end, I'll be praying for you. He'll be praying for me. And maybe that was an impact of mine on the kingdom. I certainly hope so. But that
Wow.
was an illustration of how I try to pursue my faith. God, what do you want me to do now in this situation, this encounter?
Mm. So, what does achieving your full God given potential means to you, and how do you help others discover theirs?
I see life as kind of a marathon, except I don't know what mile marker I'm at right now. But I'm going to pace myself. I'm going to enjoy the race. I'm going to enjoy the refreshment stations that are along the way. Time to rest, time to look around, observe. I'm still striving for my God given potential, but I'm on this journey towards that. And it's kind of like somebody said, if you're seeking God's will, you're in his will.
Yeah.
So I'm on this journey seeking his will and enjoying the ride. Life is also like a game of musical chairs. You hope your chair is still there, but one of
Yeah.
these days it won't be. And that is going to be a tremendous award when we get to that pedestal. That's going to be way cool.
Super cool. So your book shares lessons on leadership, communication, and success. What inspired you to write it?
When I launched my business 9 years ago, Yvette, I had to establish a media presence website, which was accompanied by blogs. So, one blog, two blogs. Eventually, I connected with the publisher of a local paper here, and he said, "Hey, would you do a column for us?" Yeah, great exposure. So, I did that with him. Along the way, he said, "Kirk, you ought to write a book." And I'm like, "Okay, I've got these blogs I've got to do something with." But then I'm a statistically minded, logical, analytical person. And I read somewhere that 81% of people have a desire to write a book, yet less than 3% actually do. Well, here's your chance, Kirk. You can be top 3% in something finally. So those are
Yeah.
my inspirations.
Wow. So if readers take away just one key lesson from your book, what do you hope it is?
I think we've talked about it today. Communication, being a good listener, being a
Yeah.
good intentional listener, probing deeper into what someone is saying. If we had more time, I would love to hear more about your story of your 41 years here on the earth. You have had some obstacles that have faced you for sure. I would love to hear more about those. But then you've had some victories too along the way, and I would love to hear those as well. That's how we connect with people. And I'm a rich person because I've connected with so many people, and it's
Yeah.
worth more than any money that you could give me. And that is fun. So the book talks about those themes.
Yes, I love that. So you've written about lessons for young people. What's one piece of wisdom you wish you had received early on in life?
I think it had to do with my lack of self confidence,
Mm,
and particularly entering into a situation, saying something that's intelligent, listening well. Um, but a lot of that fear was overcome through realizing that the conversation that you and I are having right now, which is a great one, there could be 100 other people, and there are, because they're the listeners that are going to tune into this podcast. And there's no need to be nervous about it because I'm just talking to you, Yvette. If I go to auditorium and talk to 100 people or make a presentation, I'll pick out one person and I'll talk to them, breaking it down into a one-on-one encounter. I wish I'd have known that when I was younger. It would have saved me a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of panic.
you ain't the only one, Kurt. And it really didn't hit me until I started podcasting. Like it didn't, because it's like I'm such an introvert. It's like you saying, like being rich as far as being connected to people and knowing them. But it's like I was I was popular in high school and I did a lot of things, but I really didn't find myself really actually connecting with people for me to have that connection and conversations and actually listening to people. And since podcasting, I've been getting that a lot.
The joys and benefits of podcasting.
Tell me about it. Seriously. So you wear multiple hats, from coaching to working as a production assistant for ESPN. What do you do behind the scenes?
With ESPN, I've been very fortunate to have a 30 plus career as specifically a talent statistician. So, what my job is to enhance the broadcast that you see on TV or you hear over the radio or live stream or on an app. The people that are, we call them talent, which are the play by play broadcaster, color analyst, sometimes sideline reporter. These are highly intelligent people. Their ability to turn a phrase is just incredible. So, what my job is to provide statistical analysis for one, but also if there is anything that I can do or add to enhance that conversation that they're having and that they're inviting the listener to have with them as well. That's what my main goal is. So, typical duty, 17-yard pass play. I'm holding up a card so that the announcer can say that. Patrick Mahomes is 6 of 7 on this drive for 78 yards. I'm giving him that information. That was a 43-yard punt, a 4-yard return. I'm doing that. But if there's something that's kind of peculiar that I picked up, if they score here, it'll be the first time the other team has given up a point in this quarter this season. That's something that's provocative and enhances the dialogue and the conversation.
Yeah, it's the details. It's the details. So what's
One,
something?
one,
Go
one,
ahead.
one, one time, sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
you reminded me of something. There was a player named Renee. I can't remember if it was his first or last name, who made the tackle. And so our broadcaster said, Well, you can just walk away, Renee, which pertained to a song from the 1960s. The question I held up was that the left bank version or the Four Tops version? So that enriches the broadcast.
Oh yeah, it definitely does. So what is something that most people don't realize about sports production?
We dump things, and what that means is there's a delay from what someone is seeing or listening by a few seconds. And that's in order to keep it a family program because
Mhm.
things can get a little bit foul on the field. Super Bowl 20 years ago, we remember Janet Jackson's breast. That changed everything. So that delay that takes place so we can quickly clean it up if we need to. I think that's something people would be surprised with.
Oh, so it's like before it actually airs, you could get rid of it.
It's split seconds. We're talking about 3 to 5 seconds, but that's
Oh,
enough time to make a quick reaction and bleep it out if we need
that
to.
is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've had a personal health episode related to working out. Can you share that experience and the impact on you and others?
This was back in 2014. I was working at a gym. I teach spinning classes, but this was a day that I wasn't teaching spinning. So I was doing lateral pull downs, and all of a sudden the world went black. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground. I had an oxygen mask on me with paramedics asking me my name, my date of birth, my sex, and my age, different questions like that. I was wheeled into the hospital. It was on a Friday. So I spent the weekend there because the people that conduct the test work Monday through Friday. So the following Monday, I was evaluated. There were 3 blockages in my arteries. So the next day, I got triple filleted with bypass surgery. And it was interesting because I'm kind of like, this shouldn't be happening to me. I work out, I eat fairly healthy, I try to minimize my stress, but it did. So I went through the procedure. It was about a week and a half after that. I was recovering at home and finding myself getting depressed. And I said, don't go down that road. What
Yeah.
can you learn from this situation? And there were two things. One, I want to become a better version of who I already am physically, but it was also the inspiration of it's time to get serious about this career in coaching.
Yeah.
So it was really a blessing in that regard because I had that life is too short moment, and that inspired me to move ahead with what I'm doing now.
Wow. So I have some funny questions for you.
Maybe I'll have some funny answers.
So you lived an adventurous life. What's one of the totally random skills that you have that most people don't know about?
This is, well, I'll stick with my mathematical skills because that's what got me into statistics work to begin with. When I was a kid, we didn't have calculators, so I had to figure out longhand division in order to figure out an average, a percentage. Um, so pretty soon I started memorizing things, and that has been a gift that has parlayed itself on into the broadcast booth. So I know if a quarterback is 14 of 22, he's 63.6%. If he's 14 of 24, that's 58.3%. If he is 22 of 40, that's going to be 550. So a gift for figuring these division equations out. So I'm quicker than the computer is on some of those.
Yeah, because you lost me in the beginning.
And most of the time I do with that, unless it's in the broadcast booth.
Wow, that is dope. That's seriously really dope. So, and I got another one. If your grandkids had to describe you in 3 words, what do you think they'd say?
Poppy is my name with the 7 grandkids, and they've said I'm crazy, I'm weird, and unpredictable.
That's cool. So I got one more. What's one thing you do that makes your wife roll her eyes?
Well, there's not just one, but if there were one, I guess my long distance bike riding.
Okay.
I'll go to Georgia in June. We've got a 400-mile ride across the state. I'll camp out. I'll take vacation time to do this. And she'll say, that just doesn't seem like fun to me. That sounds miserable being out in the weather, sleeping on the hard ground in a tent, and you think it's fun. And I'll say, I do.
She probably just like, oh.
Yep, exactly. And what she'll do is she'll go meet with some of her friends while I'm doing that, and they'll live a luxury life and do the things that she enjoys. So
Yes.
we both got the best of both worlds.
That is amazing. So what is one legacy you hope to leave behind?
He brought joy to the life of others.
Yeah, I could see that. That is amazing. So for someone listening today who feels stuck in their career or personal life, what's the first step they can take towards finding their purpose?
Well, I'd love to talk to some of the listeners if they're contemplating that. I am a coach. I primarily focus on career and executive development, but life always intersects that to where we get into relationships, finances, spirituality, health, different things such as that. So I'd love to interact, but if not me, I would encourage people to seek out coaching. Coaching is wonderful. The return on the investment, according to the International Coaching Federation, is well in excess of 500%. I can't think of any other investment that is going to give a greater return.
I have to agree. So how can people get in contact with you for your services and purchase your books?
I've got 2 websites. The seedsowercoach.com is my coaching website, and kirkmccarleyauthor.com is my book website. You can get my book through Amazon, Kindle, through bookstores, Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, through that website. So those would be the easiest ways to contact me. I've also got an email address, kirk@theseedsowercoach.com, and would love to hear from anybody out there that would love to connect.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kurt, for being on Life Her Podcast. I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed meeting you and for you to share so much wisdom.
You too, Yvette. Great intersection. Stay warm in Canton, Akron.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Life Her Podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and also listen to us on all audio major platforms.
Welcome to Life Her Podcast, the podcast that guides you from the 9-to-5 grind to the freedom of your own path. Discover how to conquer life's challenges while pursuing your passions with unwavering faith. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. So let's get to it.